Welcome to Road Techs, an Echo company. We're a nationwide leader in temperature-controlled LTL transportation and warehousing services spanning the entire shipping lifecycle. Matter of fact, we're one of the only temperature-controlled providers with food-grade warehouses that offer retail consolidation solutions. Leveraging our advanced technology and extensive network, we simplify shipping for clients.
Hello and welcome to the Stockout. This should be a fun one. This is our show that talks about CPG, retail, and the freight markets. And seems like we have been doing a lot of the Stockout lately, but have some fun topics to talk about today. We'll talk about the freight market, and then we'll get into the really fun stuff, which is things like how the CPG industry could be influenced by the election. I think there's some things we're learning. We learned over the last few days. Also going to talk about Mattel's supply chain, so the Barbie maker. Sort of interesting how they're kind of running their supply chain. I think there's maybe some debate as to, maybe is that more short-termism over long-termism. And then also get into Deloitte and what their survey revealed about consumer loyalty programs. Does seem like younger consumers do things differently and behave differently than older consumers. I guess maybe that shouldn't be a surprise. They aren't getting their driver's license, they aren't getting married, they're shopping differently. Also, is that about right? Is that a good summary, Grace?
Yeah, that's, I wanted to say unfortunately, but talking about my own life, I guess, in this, the driver license thing is absolutely crazy to me. I don't understand the effort it takes, but, we'll get into a little bit later, but there's definitely a more app-driven loyalty aspect to the younger generations, which I don't think anyone should be surprised by. If the younger generations can't have a decent table conversation for dinner, they're guaranteed not ordering dinner talking to someone too. So we'll get into that a little bit later.
Yeah, so Gen Z or not, we invite you to sign up for the Stockout newsletter at www.freightwaves.com/the Stockout. Go to newsletters, up at the top. First thing under supply chains is the Stockout, and also invite you, Gen Z or not, to our conference, which is going to take place on November 19th through 21st. So that's going to be the week before Thanksgiving. There's a special discount code available to Stockouters, F3 Stockout 24. And it's going to be a great conference like always. But I think the talent that we have for the JB Hunt party should be particularly great. Have Stone Temple Pilots, which Gen Z is not going to know who that is, but people my age probably big fans. Actually, one of the first CDs I bought was Stone Temple Pilots plush in kind of about 93, maybe 92, maybe 93. So look forward to seeing you there. Lots of great stuff there. Lots of great speakers, lots to look forward to there. So with that, I want to get into our first topic, which just want to leverage an article that Tony Mulvey wrote. You know who Tony Mulvey is if you, there's this icon, but you also know who he is if you watch Freightonomics. So he puts out a report every week or so, FreightWaves Supply Chain Pricing Index. So this is qualitative index of whether supply demand dynamics is in the shipper's favor or in the carrier's favor, and a 35 indicates that it is slightly weighted towards the shipper's favor. A 50 would be in balance. 1 would mean the shippers have all the pricing power. So he talks about how it's still kind of a shipper's market, and kind of the tender volume index and tender rejection index have sort of normalized to a certain extent after the hurricanes, which provided some level of disruption. It was clearly more evident in the reefer tender rejection rate. I have a good SONAR chart on that shows that the relative tender rejection rates between refrigerated and dry van. So reefer is in red, and that spiked all the way up from, let's say, 7 or 8%, all the way up to about 15%. It's come down a little bit, but sort of shows that reefer is more sensitive to these type of disruptions. Dry van went a little over 5%. Now it's at 4.5%. So still shows, at least on the dry van side, kind of an oversupplied market. And then you look at some of these metrics, it shows that demand is a little higher year over year, which maybe you would expect with all the record volume coming in through the port. So OTVI up about 5.4% year over year, which is the volume of tenders, including both those accepted and those rejected. When you just look at those ones that are accepted, which we call the CLAV in our SONAR system, those are up 3.8%. Year over year. And I want to ask you, Grace, I mean, did any of this surprise you? And, how long after a disruptive event like a hurricane does it usually take for freight markets to stabilize? And also, what do you make of the greater impact on reefer than dry van?
Yeah, I don't think it surprises me too much, especially, I'm trying to think of the best way to put this. I think in terms of, we saw clearly more of a disaster effect, I think, from Helene in regards to where it actually hit the United States. Of course, where Milton did hit Florida, there was, of course, there's going to be a lot of rebuilding as well. But I also think that there is infrastructure there that's thankfully there to withhold itself through hurricanes. I think we saw in the past, for instance, Houston and of course, Katrina as well, where we saw huge rebuilding initiatives after those hurricanes in particular. So I think we saw a lot more kind of like open deck and getting building materials back into the areas for a quite long period of time. I think even though looking at the North Carolina area in particular, there's a lot more, I'd say, like actual road infrastructure that needs to be brought back before we're even looking at homes and certain towns being rebuilt. And it sounds like some areas in particular like might not just bounce back. So I think you might see a little bit long-term some freight for infrastructure going in there, but I don't think we're looking at anything that's going to be pushing mass volumes back into those areas like we saw at some of the more, I hate to say disastrous, of course, these were disastrous as well, but as big as like we saw in Houston or in Baton Rouge in the past. I'm not surprised by the reefer aspect either. I've got family members in Florida, friends in Florida on both sides of the state, Gulf and Atlantic as well. And it's they actually, besides, of course, the hurricane aspect, most of them like to prepare more so for the power outages that come with hurricanes. So what does that mean? I think that means going to the grocery store, getting as much, of course, whether it's food, produce, etc., things that you probably would see on reefers as well. Plus, we're talking, I think a lot of that too is, that could go in a van, but water and that type of stuff. I think you saw more of a go to the grocery store, prepare for the worst case scenario. So clearly we're probably building back up that inventory. But I think that'll be short lived once shelves get restocked and people start to go back to their normal lives as well. It sounds like most power has been restored in most areas. And again, we are talking about, at least for, I'd say, more Milton, being hitting an area that's battled and has prepared for hurricanes season and season over again.
Yeah, good points there. I was thinking of the reefers as having a bigger impact from being a small, more concentrated industry, and therefore it being more sensitive to disruption. But you bring up a good point on the demand side of it too. There's also just more of the demand centered around things that had to be temperature controlled. I want to move on to the next thing, which is I think an interesting story. In the CPG world, so this was in Food Dive. It was in some of the other trade rags. Hundreds protest food additives at WK Kellogg headquarters. So that WK Kellogg, the company that manufactures the cereal, I know it did split between WK Kellogg and Kellanova. Shows the protesters there holding up Fruit Loops. So Toucan Sam, now persona non grata. Last week on the State of Freight, so Craig Fuller, our CEO, and Zach Strickland, our head of market intelligence, but talked about how sort of the election could impact the freight industry. They talked about things like the tax cuts, the social programs, the fact that the first 100 days, the new politicians, that's built up a lot of political capital, wants to spend it. It leads to a lot of freight demand. Talked about how Trump tariffs could really be impactful, even if the 60% tariff on China is hyperbole. But when you think about retail and CPG, which is really the sort of target of this show, I think you have to think about the FTC. And is the FTC going to look any different than if Trump were to get elected? I think it probably will be, and probably be more accepting of big mergers, which the current FTC under Lena Khan really has sort of cracked down on. And you see that with FTC suing to block the Kroger and Albertsons deal. And then you also, I think in the CPG world, you might have this issue with food quality, the issue with food additives that we're seeing in that protest with WK Kellogg. And I think this could be a big impact, mostly because so RFK Jr. Putting his support behind Trump. I don't know, Grace, if you saw the video that I think went viral. He's talking about the food coloring additives. He's talking about one that makes food turn yellow. Specifically, can't remember the name of that additive. But he said that the regulatory agencies are sock puppets for the food industry. He talks about how what we eat causes all these chronic diseases, and very influential. And you have to think, I mean, if Trump wins, is RFK going to have a prominent role in the administration and in some manner to tackle some of these projects? I mean, I think RFK Jr. is a little odd. I don't agree with all the vaccine stuff, but I think he does make some points in terms of some of these food products. If they're not consumed in moderation, too much of these sort of chemicals and things, can't be a good thing.
Well, it's interesting too, because sometimes I wonder in this situation, you bring up the FTC as well, the changes in Chevron deference, the Chevron Doctrine. Is that ring a bell to you at all? Are you caught up with any of that?
Not familiar with that.
Okay, so basically, to kind of sum it up, there's a 1984 decision that basically said if a federal legislation is ambiguous, it does leave a gap for the regulatory agency to interpret the law. And that has been overturned over the last year. So I do wonder, and this is something I think the Trump administration has been very positive for, not having to kind of deal with these regulatory bodies when trying to enact different laws in this area. So this is that kind of area where I do kind of wonder if we will see changes, or I guess in this situation, right, a chance that if there isn't a regulatory body that has to come in and say, no, this is harmful, or yes, this is harmful, if it could continue to go on as well. So again, yeah, I think you're 100% right. And this is the administration could change how something like this situation, which is, it's funny you brought this up, right down the street happened for me, right over here in Michigan. I think if we do see a change up in administration, this could be something I think that kind of potentially could fall. But again, if it is someone like Kennedy, then we could see a switch around too. So whenever I see these kind of rulings where there could be potentially regulatory body that would be in charge of helping draft that law or that legislation, knowing that they don't have to be involved in that process anymore, and it's just whatever your political leaders feel is right and what their constituents and their, of course, citizen body is telling them they want, then we could see fast changes in this realm too. So this could be something, again, that I'm sure a number of CPG companies, not just even with food law and what's being put into food, but chemicals and other objects too, are kind of sitting back and wondering, okay, this administration could change the way that we have to put together our products and the different ingredients that we use over time as well.
Yeah, I think they could have to change the formulas here that could either be more expensive for the CPG companies or just not be as colorful. And I mean, you did have doctors, speaking that saying those dyes and preservatives can cause learning disabilities and even cancer. And some of those, I guess, additives least the protesters were saying that they were supposed to have been removed by 2018, and here we are almost 2025, and they still haven't been removed. And I think on this sort of the state level, California has looked at eliminating some of these dyes too. I think they've passed legislation to remove some of the red dyes. So it seems unlikely that a lot of CPGs are going to want to have one SKU for California and then another one for the rest of the country, or do it state by state. So I think they're probably going to have to change their formula. So I think that could be a big impact on CPG supply chains. Want to move on to another a fun one was, you highlighted for me this Wall Street Journal article about Mattel. If you don't know who Mattel is, make Barbie. So that Barbie looks like she's maybe had one too many, but apparently that was like a breakout breakout hit toy. That one was. So this article goes through what Mattel's doing on the supply chain side. A lot of good, insightful things there. 45% decline in the number of SKUs. So I mean, it's kind of clear why that's more efficient. You can run the production lines longer, fewer changeovers, which is a really costly thing to do when you're manufacturing a product. And then, of course, helps with inventory management if you have fewer SKUs. And then what they're doing, because it's hard to predict sort of which toys are going to be runaway hits and which ones are not, they're outsourcing some of the production. A lot of this seems to be working. The gross margin increased from 2022 to 2023, went from 45.7 to 47.5. So when you're under activist pressure to do things like divest the toy lines that are not doing as well, you have to take some of these actions. And I guess a couple of things strike me about this. One is that a lot of these supply chain actions are very similar to what a lot of the food companies have done. Like we've seen companies like, Nestle and Smucker reduce the number of SKUs in order to just do all those things. I mean, improve the inventory management, improve efficiency. I mean, in their case, they feel like if they eliminate an SKU that's not selling well, they have so many other products, people just gravitate towards another product that they sell. Maybe Mattel, Barbie, they kind of feel the same thing. If they have fewer different types of Barbie, they'll just buy one that is on the shelf. And sort of the main sort of issue I see is just because it is so unpredictable to call which one of these is going to be a breakout success, that if you reduce the number of SKUs too much, even though there's a short-term gain, I think it reduces the creativity. It just sort of reduces the potential for one to be a runaway hit that maybe you were never anticipating. But wanted to see what your thoughts were as well.
Yeah, the one trend I noticed too, that's like, and I see this across a number of like doll brands in particular. Shout out to my nieces, who I get to buy wonderful gifts for, and realizing this, but there's a lot of this kind of like mystery type of doll too that they're doing too, where it's like packaged so you can't really see what the doll will be. Like Barbie, a lot of times will be like their hair changes or their outfit will change and things. So with that trend, you can easily, I think, have a smaller selection, knowing that, they might potentially buy the same one, but that risk is kind of built into buying that product. Another thing too, which I clearly was brought up in this article, but Mattel in particular has been really focused on, and again, this could be really short term depending on when these all come out, but tying their production and their new toys per se with the action movies that they have coming out at the same time. Clearly, we saw that happen with Barbie. Over the next couple of years, they're not only is there a Barney movie coming out, just looking at this list is interesting. We got Hot Wheels coming out. They have Thomas the Tank Engine movie coming out. They've got Wishbone's coming back. That got me really excited. Uno movie coming out, Polly Pocket. So they're going to be able to, I think, focus their inventory and exactly what they're building for consumers based off of, the popular movie that they know is coming out as well. And I'm sure across these brands too, I wouldn't be surprised, if you saw Barbie with a Wishbone dog or something like that, right? Where it's like we can kind of mix and stay on trend, but make these just smaller orders as well. So I'm not surprised with it. I'm also not surprised with kind of like their hybrid model. The article touched on too, right? Where they're nearshoring, but they're also hedging that potential investment by continuing to outsource to other Asian countries as well. And I think we see that across a number of shippers and toy producers too. So again, it's I think the exclusivity aspect, right, that we see more and more with toys and this generation, and clearly you see it with like Matchbox cars and Hot Wheel cars too, will allow some of these toy brands to kind of shrink down to these are our main focus. Make it hot, do the marketing, throw it all over Instagram, make it cool, have some celebrity or influencer, have the doll, and then the next thing you know, that's the product that everyone wants. And I think would that have worked without the internet or the culture we've built around the internet 10 years ago, which is kind of crazy to think about? Probably not, but I think that's going to work more and more with the way that these companies are marketing and how items are becoming hot these days. I think you see that Elmo, right? Tickle Me Elmo aspect more and more and more. And I don't think that that's going to go away anytime soon.
Yeah, lots of synergy across physical products and internet and movies. So companies are getting very sophisticated in terms of sort of constantly marketing to consumers. Also wanted to talk to you about, I did see you just were on with Isaiah about the Deloitte Consumer Loyalty Survey. And it just sort of, what strikes me is that some of the younger behavior is a lot different than mine. Like I had no idea that you could bring up an app and it would tell you where in the store the product was that you were looking for. I thought the stores were designed to make you not know where it is, so you walk by things and impulsively purchase things. But so what else is happening with the consumer loyalty study?
Yeah, no, like that's why they put the Starbucks in the Target, so that you walk around slowly. But for a lot of us out there, we want to get in and out. So yeah, it's funny you brought up Target does have that. I love it, right? You don't have to ask for help, but that 100% is being fully driven by the younger generations. We want a digital app or loyalty program that we can not only order products on, but be able to see our rewards points, use our rewards points, and use them easily. I was using, there's a store, more of a food place the other day. And in order to like reload my account, I had to go on a different website, and it was super weird and janky, and my card wouldn't even let me go through because it thought it was stealing my identity. Like that experience, being able to make something as easy as possible is the trend that everyone wants. 86% of consumers, though, across all age groups are looking for these type of programs, these loyalty programs. Not only they want the ease of use, but they want money back. They want some real rewards. They want to see, hey, if I spend a certain amount of money here, am I going to see you pat my back too down the line as well? And I think you're seeing that a lot of restaurants, right? You see it all over the place, but you're seeing it more and more with, of course, I think grocery stores, retail stores, in general, and getting those consumers to come back to. And I think some obvious ones out there too is like more of like the paid membership aspect, right? So we see Amazon Prime, Walmart Plus are great ones. Not only do you get to see some of your savings over time, but you also know, hey, I get to watch movies. Walmart Plus, right, has the Paramount Plus partnership with it too. So not only are you getting certain percentages and coupons for your groceries, but you're also saving $9 a month getting Paramount and watching the occasional game that goes on that too, right? The other side of the Deloitte survey was not just, right, the apps and how that we're keeping, of course, consumers coming back for more, but also the brand partnership aspect of that loyalty too, taking a loyal brand base and bringing that into your store some way, somehow. Target, I think, does a great job. I brought this up with Isaiah. Ulta, right? You see Ulta across a number of Targets now. Someone like me who loves both of those brands, great. I'm going, if I need new makeup, I'm going to Target. I know it's going to be easy for me. I know the products are going to be there from Ulta that I want. And then I also get the benefit of using the Target app on top of that. even though Ulta does have a pretty good app as well. But and some other examples of that too. And we talked about Walmart Plus, of course, with Paramount, Starbucks, and Spotify have a wonderful connection too. To maybe bring it onto more food level, you see, of course, Taco Bell with Mountain Dew, right, which they brought into the shelves too with Baja Blast. But you also see the Taco Bell and Doritos partnership, which you can actually buy in store as well. So I think it's really interesting to see these changes. The one in particular I'm just starting to see, I actually probably see it more with influencer brands. So like YouTube accounts who now have merchandise or want to bring their community together. I'm trying to think of, there's another platform too that does this, but creating like a community. So 50% of Gen Zs and millennials want some type of member community within their brands and within their applications and loyalty programs too. So a way of coming together and say, hey, this is, if you really love this brand or this product, you should definitely try this product, and sharing, whether it's recipes or just thoughts, and bringing that more of that, like chat room feel to that loyalty situation. And the other one too, and I would definitely say I fall into this trap, is our generation, Gen Zs, millennials, and I'm sure those younger than us as well, alphas, whatever you want to call them, we love a good gamification system, right? Like being able to beat other people or show that you're a leader within a certain brand community is huge as well. So I think we're going to see more of those type of programs exist, and see more brands either developing their own stores as well. And of course, the partnerships I think are going to be huge as we move forward too, which we brought up in the toy aspect a little bit as well.
Yeah, so you're going to have to download a lot of apps and organize this app.
For sure, yeah.
One quick question before we wrap up. Ulta stuff that you use at Target, do they have any exclusive things at Target? 'Cause I know Target's done that with other categories.
Yeah, every once in a while they do, 100%. And Target does a lot of that, you're right, in the makeup product section as well. And so, it's that right there, right, is a great target to get people to go to that store instead of maybe buying online for Ulta or going to Ulta directly. Mm-hmm. Love it. Well, yeah, wrapping it up here. Long episode, fun episode. Of course, we have some wonderful guests next week, so make sure you guys check that out. Until then, enjoy this 1 month until F3. So head to live.freightwaves.com to get your tickets. Head to the newsletter category on freightwaves.com to join our community as well. And we'll talk with you next Monday.